In the government's latest response,
you must stay at home.
Master of the house, doling out the charm.
It's very important that everyone
know that you are not alone.
G'day chemists, data scientists, historians, and pretty much anyone who's dealing with information at all. For example, here we have Florence Nightingale, who was a nurse as well as being a statistician. I strongly believe that the most important thing we do as a species and as humans, and well, that's the same thing, but as professionals, as students, is we tell stories. And we all know the really easy ways to do it, the really basic ways. We use our words, we use pictures, but it is one of the more convincing and important ways to tell a story is to tell a story with numbers, particularly in our modern society, right? It's becoming more and more important. And I find the easiest way to tell that story is with either a table or a graph / chart. Your call on what you want to call it. In this session, we're going to look at how to tabulate data, the basics of what a table should look like and where to go from there. So here is your learning goals, right? Like by the end of this, we'll be able to understand the primary components of a table. What's this way? What's that way? And so on. At the end, what you should be able to do is, if I was to give you a stack of data, you should be able to populate a table with it, fill a table with it. Here is your vocabulary for the session. If I just get you to pause the video here, write this down, you'll be able to refer back to it as we move through the session, and that'll make your life so much easier because we are going to introduce some new words. So let's have a look at table format. Here's a table. It's nice. It's got everything in a table that makes me nice and happy. There's one thing I'd change about it, and this where it says meters here for water depth, I changed that to an M and use the unit instead of the word. But that's, it's a small thing. So columns. These are columns. We have independent variables, dependent variables, sometimes control variables. I wouldn't usually. And they are listed in separate columns. And you may notice that if this is water temperature at various depths, that means the thing we're changing is the water depth. That is the independent variable. And that is in the left-hand column. And that's a common thing that's going to come up again and again. Rows. Each row here, so rows go sideways, each row represents a separate data point or trial in the experiment investigation, looking things up. In other words, every single row is a separate, linked piece of information. So here we have the bit of information about the water depth is 50 meters, and the temperature is that it's 18 degrees Celsius. So those are linked together because they're in the same row. All right. Now, we already touched on this, but where do we place certain variables? The independent variable, which is the thing we change, that's typically listed in the leftmost column, okay? And then, and separate rows for each incident. The dependent variables is typically listed in the second column, and here we can see these are all dependent. I said independent, I meant dependent variables. These are all dependent variables, so that's the thing you measure, which is the transmittance, and you see that we have 1 group, 2 group, 3 group, 4 group. And again, these are all the values linked to the 0% independent variable. Okay, so it goes independent variable, then dependent variables after that. Control variables, if applicable, usually not, will be listed in additional columns. And the corresponding values for each one will be in the same row as they are for the independent variable. Okay, so we keep all the linked pieces of information together. So here are our rules for setting up a table, right? This is the most basic and awesome table. First off, we want to ensure that our data is organized in a logical manner. Now, what that means is you may wish to, particularly using this table, if you're collecting data in a table, it's a different story, but if you're using this to present, you might want to put things in the order of the independent variable. That makes it easier to see the trends. We use appropriate units of measurement, and each column, row, and heading has a descriptive title, and the units are in the column row. Column heading row. They are never in the body. And that's because when we're putting this in computers, it starts to confuse them a lot. It doesn't treat them as actual numbers. We want to round them to a reasonable number. We don't want, if you're measuring this with digitally, you might get up to like 7 or 8 decimal places. We don't need that in our life. What is reasonable? The table is enclosed. See how you can see a border here? We always enclose our tables. And we use a ruler to do that, or the computer, but we always enclose our tables. Label each column. Table has a clear descriptive title, and that descriptive title should mention both the independent and dependent variables. And then when we're finished, we want to check for accuracy. We want to make sure we've got all these right. Boom, boom, boom. Because otherwise we're telling a different story than what actually happened, and that's important, right? We want to make sure we're good. And we want to check our table. So here's another. See, these are nice tables, aren't they? Tables make me happy. We want to check our tables to make sure our tables are clear. Column headings clearly labeled and descriptive. Logic and order in placement. So independent variable here, dependent variables there, and so on. Each unit measurement is clearly in the top column headings. Appropriate number of decimal places. We haven't gone insane and added like 30 decimal places there. Rows and columns are clearly labeled consistently. Consistence is really important. All right. Now I know you're a little table expert. Well done. I'm proud of you. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Hit like and subscribe. Why not? Go for it. Press those buttons and we'll catch up with you as soon as we can. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye now.